All right, welcome back to Retro Pokemon TCG. I'm Evan Cole, and I've got a good one for you today. This is the 2010 World Championships format, Diamond Pearl through Unleashed, one of my favorites. We've got Whimsicast himself on the left playing Gengar C, one of the more underrated decks in the format. I also know this is his favorite 2010 deck. And you've got myself on the right playing Sablelock, which is a deck that I have always loved, but I've really been focusing a lot on recently. So this game actually comes from a tournament that we held here in Chicago just a few weeks ago, so in May 2026. And this was round one, so starting off with a banger here. Sablelock as a deck, of course, tends to either try to donk its opponent or try to control them out. As we see, I did not open Sableye, so I do not get to pull off any sort of donk, although against an SP deck, it's usually unlikely Sableye can pull it off. I love Sablelock as a deck. It sometimes does not have a great reputation in casual gauntlet play, mainly for the fact that it's a deck that either tries to take a donk or lock your opponent out of the game, which not everyone enjoys doing, but in a tournament setting, those can both be great, and also your opponent can't choose what they play against. So this felt like a great opportunity for me to try out Sablelock, and this list is a version that really emphasizes on the sniping. You can see already that I have this Drifblim FB on the bench, which is a great card in SP. It's not played in every single SP deck, but when you do have a deck that wants to play Drifblim, it's great. And in a deck that emphasizes sniping, like my list does, I think it's perfect. So here we see I use Chatot G's attack, search, and escape to go get an SP Radar into my hand, and Kyle goes on to his first turn. So Whimsicast is playing this Gengar C. So this is also an SP deck. It is an SP deck that also plays Gengar from Stormfront. So this is going to be a really interesting list and a very interesting matchup here, as Kyle does open up with the Pokemon Collector, which is the best place you want to start on turn one in most decks here in this format. So as we see him look through his list, you will notice right away we have this Blaziken FB. This was his own tech for this specific tournament. The idea was that Gengar C has a very, very bad time against Steelix. Blaziken FB is a way to help out with any of those Fire Weak Steelixes. It also happens to help out against things like Garchomp as well. In matchups where Blaziken FB is not needed, this deck relies on Garchomp C Lv.X to snipe, as well as Gengar from Stormfront to also snipe with Shadow Room. So we are both playing decks that rely on sniping out the opponent. With that said, we both go about it very, very differently. Kyle's deck is a lot more proactive because of all the deck space needed to play the Gengar line as well as the SP engine. The deck does not have as much room for more disruption style effects. Just to point out how interesting this list is, Kyle is playing a 3-0-3 Gengar line. So 3 Gastly, no Haunter, 3 Gengar, and a Gengar Lv.X as the Gengar line. In this matchup, Gastly is a little bit more vulnerable. Sableye is able to knock it out. Honchkrow G can also snipe it with a target attack as well. Gastly only has 50 HP, if I recall. So for Kyle, he's likely going to hold on to this Gastly until he can wear Rare Candy in the same turn. Again, there's no Haunter, so frankly, there's no reason to bench the Gastly unless you think your hand is going to get disrupted. All right, so we've got this Garchomp C, the Toxicroak G down. That's the third SP Pokemon, so Kyle now is bluffing a Power Spray. However, his list does not play any Power Spray at all. Again, this comes from the fact that there's a lot of cards you need to fit into this deck, and so Power Spray is one of the concessions. I've played against Kyle's Gengar C list before, so I did know that he didn't play Power Spray, but I think I forgot for the first while of the game. So eventually I'm going to stop playing around Power Spray, but for these first few turns, you are likely going to see me trying to play around this card that isn't even in the deck. And as someone that plays a single Power Spray in my Dialga list, I fully get it. All right, Kyle going to open up here with this Psychic Restore, and this is a really good play. So if you want to learn how to play against Sablelock or any deck that can attack with Sableye, Psychic Restore or some other attack that can just poke the Sableye really nullifies that overconfident attack, which does require Sableye to have high HP. So I basically can't use overconfident for the rest of the game here. All right, Cyrus's initiative, going to get a single heads looking at this hand. Now, Kyle's got the Uxie and the Cyrus. Normally, you would probably take out a Cyrus here, but knowing that my hand is far away from a Power Spray, I decide, look, if I take out this Premier Ball, this will prevent the Uxie Lv.X from coming into play, or at least being guaranteed to come into play, and can hopefully slow Kyle down a little bit. Not much I can do about the Cyrus there, but this deck plays Judge, it plays more copies of Initiative, I can take care of that later on. Looking at my own hand, it's not amazing here. We've got this SP Radar, Calm, Toxicroak, Bebe, Poketurn. So I'm going to attach the DCE to the Drifblim, and here I'm trying to decide what am I going to try to set up. Again, I don't currently have Power Sprays available to me, although I think I'm realizing now I could have gotten off a Power Spray if I were able to impersonate a Cyrus, but I think I realized that a little too late, so could have played this a little differently and possibly taken out the Cyrus from Kyle's hand, but taking out the Premier Ball, shutting down Uxie Lv.X, not that bad either. So going to go get a Garchomp C. Communication throws away the Toxicroak G, goes to get a Uxie, and we're about to set up for 6 cards here. One of the most iconic parts of this format. Uxie has been announced to be getting reprinted in Celebrations 30, so I think it's well-deserved. I don't think setup is as busted as it may look from a modern lens. When you actually play 2010, you realize, like, it's nice to have, but it doesn't really enable too many broken strategies. But in this case, wow, look at this ability to just refresh the entire hand. Got some great cards here. Got this Honchkrow G. Unfortunately, I've already attached to the Drifblim for turn, so I won't be able to attach that Special Dark. But look, there's an SP Radar in my hand, some Poketurns. If that Sableye had been undamaged, there was a possibility of, okay, if I don't attach the DCE, I could instead try to Overconfident on the Uxie. But because of that 20, Overconfident is really not an option. So going to go for the Impersonate here, just try to build up my hand, make it even better. Going to get my first Cyrus of the game as I start my Cyrus chains. Now, if I recall, I believe that I prized, I think, 2 Cyrus. So the Cyrus chains will not be long for this world, as we see Kyle top decking a second Cyrus. So that actually makes it better that I saved that first Cyrus and I went after the Premier Ball instead. One thing you will notice about this game as it goes on, this is a very interesting game, and I'm very happy to share it with you. There are many choices that both players make that have long-lasting implications on the game, so pay attention to those as we play through it here. The Premier Ball will be turning off not only Uxie Lv.X, but also Garchomp C Lv.X, and the Psychic Restore disenabling Overconfident, things like that will continue to build up. I decided to let this set up through, knowing that Kyle already had the Cyrus in hand, only drawing 2 cards. That Poketurn, or sorry, that Power Spray, I am more likely to want to hold on for a Dragon Rush, sorry, not Dragon Rush, a Healing Breath, or a level down from the Gengar Lv.X. Those are the main powers I'm trying to spray. Maybe I can spray a Leap Away to cheese that out. I've done that sometimes, it can be useful. Remember that you cannot Power Spray Fainting Spell. So remember, Gengar Stormfront's Fainting Spell says if it is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, flip a coin. If heads, the attacking Pokemon is also knocked out as well. That is a power that occurs during the attacker's turn. So if I'm attacking Gengar, it would trigger during my turn. Power Spray can only be played during the opponent's turn. So can't use Power Spray on that, unfortunately. So it's not going to be as powerful of a card this game, but always nice to have at least one in your hand. Now I can focus my future Cyruses, of which there are only one because of my prizes. I can save them for other things like valuable Poketurns and energy gains. Kyle getting this board set up. You will notice the board is fully filled out here, so no Gastly yet. Again, going to try to pull off this combo of Gastly, Candy, Gengar in the same turn. Putting the Psychic on the Garchomp without the energy gain, I think is a great choice. Also going to run away with the Uxie here, so promoting the Blaziken, leaving space for Gastly, also getting the Uxie back in the deck for possible future actions here. All right, going back over to my turn now. So this Sableye has 20 HP remaining, and I'm in a situation where I would love to attack this turn. I think my impersonates are a little weak at this point, but my energy situation isn't great. I missed an energy attachment on the first turn of the game, and so now I'm in a position where I have to get this Sableye out of the active. I don't think Kyle will want to knock out the Sableye if he can help it. Again, both of us are sniping decks, so nothing on the bench is ever safe, and I've got a lot of options here in this hand for what to do. I have the Psychic Energy off that Cyrus, so I do have Shadow Ball from Drifblim as an option. I can use SP Radar or Bebe Search to go get a Crobat G. This would let me knock out the Uxie on the bench. It would also let me knock out the Toxicroak G on the bench, so those are both options. I could technically Dragon Rush this turn, but with this hand, it's looking very unlikely. I think it would be too intense of a resource commitment here. And really, I'm just trying to figure out, like, am I going to have to Bebe Search for an Unown Q to get the Sableye out? If I want to start taking the prize race, I have to. And the thing about this Sablelock list is because it is built around sniping, Sablelock in general can't hit really high numbers. You really are trying to take as many cheap prizes as you can. You're trying to take one-shots on very low HP Pokemon, and so I have to start taking these prize cards now before we have this high HP Gengar or the high HP Garchomp C Lv.X coming onto the field to disrupt things. So I do go for the Unown Q. Again, you see me declare the quick, playing around or hoping for a power spray that's never even there, and now we've got options. So because I played the supporter, I don't have an energy gain, which means that this Honchkrow G cannot target attack this turn. So I think this is a great time to go for that Drifblim snipe, going to SP Radar for a Crobat. This will let me knock out the Toxicroak or the Uxie. Both of them are good. I'm likely going to target the Toxicroak just because Leap Away and Poketurn let it be more likely to leave the battlefield at some point, whereas that Uxie is likely to stick around for a long time. I can go take care of that later. Drifblim FB is such a fun card. I think it is so good in Sablelock in particular. Just being a big body, having 120 HP later in the game is so crucial, and it's also just a lot of fun. Attacking with it at the beginning of the game is not really my ideal situation. Typically, I like to start off by attacking with either Sableye or Honchkrow G. In the mid game, I'm attacking with Garchomp, and then in the end game, we can swing in with Drifblim to kind of clean things up from there. So a little out of order, but that's how the cards fell. As we do see, Kyle did get the rare candy, so just like that, Gastly is coming down, Gengar's coming down with it now, going to SP Radar as well. Interested to see what we're going to get. So Bronzong G makes a lot of sense, going to try to either set up a Dragon Rush, but no, we're actually going to try to set up a Gengar here. I believe Kyle does have a Cyrus in hand. That will enable him to Cyrus for the Psychic Energy to pull off a Shadow Room, but if he can also use Galactic Switch, which I have just Power Sprayed, that would enable a Poltergeist. So I have Power Sprayed the Galactic Switch here, and Kyle's going to go for the Cyrus. Now, whenever you Power Spray Galactic Switch, if your opponent just gets a Poketurn, then they can just pick up the Bronzong, drop it down, Galactic Switch again. That can be really, really strong. In this matchup in particular, again, the Power Sprays aren't as strong on my end as they might be in other matchups. If I'm trading a Power Spray for a Poketurn, I'm happy to do that. That's kind of my mindset as well when I Power Spray a Leap Away from a Toxicroak. Just make them have it, reduce those resources a little bit more. So we do see Kyle goes for the energy, the Poketurn, and the Cyrus. So we do guaranteed have a Garchomp attack, or sorry, a Gengar attack this turn. It'll be up to Kyle to determine if they want to really try for that Poltergeist and knock out this Drifblim, or if they want to just go for the Shadow Room. Now, Drifblim does have 80 HP. I only have 5 cards in hand. Poltergeist would need to hit 3 trainers off of that to take the knockout. Kyle could burn the Poketurn. I think it's probably fine to just go for the Shadow Room. If you want to take a prize, you can knock out the Sableye, or you can start racking up damage on the Uxie, for example. And we'll see what he decides here. Going to promote the Gengar, of course, and let's see where he goes. Now, Gengar is Dark Weak, and my deck is full of Dark attackers, but unfortunately, it's not that simple for a couple of reasons. So one reason is, okay, so Kyle does decide to knock out the Sableye, take the prize, get rid of the pivot, good choice. So from my end here, Gengar does not have ×2 Dark weakness, and I do not play Lucario GL. So the weakness is definitely relevant, but it's not as relevant as it might otherwise be. Additionally, of course, that fainting spell gives me trouble. So I do have options like Honchkrow G can target attack for a lot of damage if you have the special dark attached to it as well. That might be something I do later on. You see, I just I Poketurned the Crobat, Flash Bite on the Bronzong G. Bronzong is also Psychic Weak, so Drifblim really getting in work here, going to pick off another prize card with this Shadow Ball. Remember, Shadow Ball includes weakness, so these Psychic Weak bench Pokemon are just getting picked off like crazy, and it's great. Now, I'm playing this Cyrus, which does mean Kyle can basically guaranteed pull off a Poltergeist here. I think there definitely is a world where I hold on to the Cyrus and I don't play it this turn, especially because I am likely finding out right now that I am out of Cyruses that I prized the other two. So that could give me a reason to hold on. My hand has a Poketurn and an energy gain, so I can attach the Special Dark to the Honchkrow G. I can gain the Honchkrow G, or I can gain the Garchomp, kind of hedge my bets there. And that can reduce the number of trainers in my hand that way. But I think in hindsight, I should have done a bit better job protecting this Drifblim. Drifblim already has another target on the board in that Uxie, and just being able to pull off attacks like this is really, really strong. Now, I can actually attack this Gengar. I have the energy gain, the special dark, so the Flash Bite would have let target attack swing for 100 damage. No, sorry, it's not ×2 weak. So it would have swung for, I think, 80 damage, which is very, very hefty. It might enable some Flash Bites going later on. But because I filled up my hand, I'm going to take out the Bronzong. I'm drawing a DCE off the prizes. That's great. And I believe this Drifblim will be going down from a Poltergeist. Yeah, we've got 4 trainers there. So Drifblim did its job, took out 2 prize cards. And even if it had 120 HP, the 4 trainers would have knocked it down. Now it's over to Kyle to decide what to do from here. So this is an interesting spot. Kyle with no DCEs, and he's got the Cyrus chain, but we don't have a Uxie Lv.X, so we don't have a consistent source of draw in the hand here. You see Uxie Lv.X on the bottom of that deck. These Cyruses are great, but he would really like to ramp up the pressure with with Garchomp C Lv.X if possible. So going to grab another energy. One nice thing about this Gengar C list is the Cyrus can search out the energy, and you only play Psychic. Kyle plays a single Fire energy for that Blaziken, but otherwise it's just all Psychic energy. So that does make it quite consistent for being able to attack. It does also enable your Galactic Switch a lot better as well. And so this does provide some consistency beyond just what the Cyrus engine provides on its own. Okay, so big hand here, going to attach that second energy. Kyle realizing this Gengar's probably reasonably safe up here, and he's going to go for it. So declares Poltergeist, nothing else to do, and we do see that it does go off, 120 damage. Drifblim, thank you for your service. All right, so we've got the Special Dark on the Honchkrow G. And I also have Garchomp C Lv.X and Energy Gain and the DCE I just drew off the prizes. So my decision here is, who do I attack with? Do I attack into the Gengar or do I attack around the Gengar? Promote Crobat either way, that's just discipline. And I draw the Murkrow, which is one of the cards I would have gotten off this collector, so not a great draw for me. I should still play the collector, but at this point, I'm not exactly sure what I would get off it. That would be very helpful. A second Garchomp C could be really nice. Another Uxie could be good. This list plays 2 copies of Uxie, so that might be a way to help me draw cards in the future. I do love having this Murkrow. This card is going to be really, really, really important in this matchup. And so I want to conserve my resources in a way where I can attack with Honchkrow later on. You see, I'm looking at the discard pile, already thinking about the Darkness Restore that Honchkrow has. That might let me sneak in some unusable basics from Kyle's discard pile, maybe a Gastly at some point or something like that, as I go for this collector here. All right, so the prize cards are flowing. We already see that the Dragon Rush is open for me in this turn. So the goal here for me is to try to play down so that Poltergeist can't knock me out, preserve some of my basics on the bench. Kyle, if this Gengar lives, of course, you have options for the Shadow Room. Shadow Room onto Uxie is great. You can Flash Bite it later on to take it out. A Dragon Rush itself would be pretty good, and Kyle also plays Ambipom. So if I go for this Dragon Rush this turn, then Ambipom will be able to take out my Garchomp in response. So let's see how that goes. Man, I tell you what, Gengar and Garchomp, those are hard to keep saying back and forth all the time. All right. Poketurn picks up the Crobat, promoting the Garchomp C. Nice to have Crobat in hand. Does burn a Poketurn, but you usually are Poketurning Crobats in this matchup here. It does make it less likely I can loop Dragon Rushes, but I guess I'm planning for it to go off anyway, or to get knocked out, as I bench out my hand and I do Dragon Rush the Garchomp with the energy. So the reason for this is that if I kill the one with the energy gain, then Kyle can always search out an energy gain of his own to attach to the Garchomp C that had an energy if I had not knocked it out. All right. Now, looking here, you see that I have benched a Bronzong G. So Bronzong G is really useful in Sablelock, specifically for powering up the Honchkrow, the Supreme Victor's Honchkrow, the one that's not an SP Pokemon. I believe Conley did not play Bronzong G in his Sablelock lists. I kind of get it, but also the fact that Murkrow can evolve immediately with its Dusk Stone, it does enable for you to swing with Honchkrow immediately out of nowhere. You can bench Murkrow, evolve into Honchkrow, attach to Honchkrow, and then Galactic Switch over to it. It would have to be a DCE involved, of course, but this would let you swing right away, and I think that's very valuable. Kyle with the Communication, that's huge. Does go for the Ambipom, so looking to knock out my Garchomp C this turn. Communication's also amazing to go get something like Gengar Lv.X or Uxie Lv.X at some point, but here's saying, I just want the Ambipom, let's just grab that while I can. Already holding on to the Bebe search as well if he would like to go get more Pokemon. By the way, notice my hand only has 2 trainers in it now, so trying to play around that Poltergeist whenever I can, as we do see Ambipom goes for energy gain and fire energy here. Kyle's got a group of 5 trainers. We see 2 Poketurns, a Bebe, a Cyrus, and a Judge. Deciding which supporter to use, might be holding on to both. Let's see if he just wants to hang on, and he will. So very disciplined play from Kyle there, just going for the snap attack and nothing more, as it goes back to me. Okay, I got this Honchkrow. Gengar is on the bench. I'm seeing this as a great opportunity to start harassing this Gengar, make it so that I can pick it off later on with a Psychic Restore very easily. So we're going to Flash Bite onto the Gengar, and then target attack will hit it for 50. Boom, there it is. It now has 60 HP remaining, so another target attack for another 40 will then put it with 20 HP left and enable me to Psychic Restore later on. Unfortunately, there's a problem with that, which I did not catch for a while, so this is an exercise for you. Can you identify what is wrong with that thought process. So again, Gengar has 60 HP. Target attack will put it down to 20 HP, which I can then Psychic Restore to knock it out while avoiding the fainting spell. So leave a comment if you can figure out what that misplay is. Again, long-term implications here. This will play out over the course of several turns. Again, we're in the mid-game now, both players with 3 prize cards left. The resources are starting to get a little tight on both sides. This is really when the scales can tip in either direction. All right, Kyle going to pick up that Unown Q with the Poketurn as it was attached to the Blaziken FB. Immediately benches the Blaziken back down, though. I like attacking around Ambipom if possible, as this is one of those situations where this Ambipom doesn't have much to do. It can tail code an energy if it wants, but every Pokemon on my bench is a good recipient for an energy. Even if he puts it on a Uxie, for example, that would just prepare me for a Psychic Restore later on, which is very much on the table. And if it goes to Murkrow, that'll be ready to attack. So Ambipom not doing much. You likely would prefer to do something like a Galactic Switch plus a Poketurn if possible. Unfortunately, Kyle does not have that as an option. So instead, going to go for this Azelf and this Uxie here with this Pokemon Collector, searching through the deck now. And Kyle wrote a mini blog post about this tournament, which includes a discussion of this match, and you're going to see something play out right now. Kyle said that his Crobat G was prized, and he really wants that Crobat G to enable his Shadow Rooms, and so we're going to see him attempt to go for it now, I believe, with this Azelf. Without Crobat G, the Gengar just has a much harder time reaching certain numbers, and so we have seen, he just played a Poketurn this turn. I'm not sure how many he has left, but we got one in the hand for sure. And here we go. All right. Going to bench the Azelf, asking, do you have a Power Spray in your 4-card hand? And we know that I do. Bam. Time Walk is one of the best things you can Power Spray in SP, as this burns another Poketurn from Kyle. So a lot of resources used up in this one turn alone. Going to see if Kyle can capitalize off of it here. All right, bench space is open. Again, got that Unown Q in hand, holding a Judge and a Bebe and a Cyrus as well. I've got a 3-card hand. I have no supporters at all, so really going to be hoping for something good here, as Kyle is going to go for... This is very interesting. So I have 3 cards in hand. You can't Poltergeist, right? Shadow Room will not be able to knock out the Murkrow because Honchkrow has 90 HP. With that said, if you do Shadow Room to put it to 30 damage on the Murkrow, Honchkrow would have 60 HP remaining and does have a special does have a Poke Power, so 2 Shadow Rooms would knock out the Honchkrow either way. Kyle instead going to Luring Flame the Bronzong. This is a great choice. Bronzong is huge, just such high retreat cost, and we've even got the nice old school burn counters there. Thank you, Kyle. That's awesome. Flip for the burn, Tails, Bronzong going to take 20. So, okay. I don't play Warp Energy. This Poketurn's the only shot I have, as I drew the Judge. That's awesome. Okay. So I'm deciding how to do this here. Obviously, you have to Poketurn the Bronzong, but the question is, what do you do next? And this is going to be another misplay that I make. So see if you can spot what goes wrong. We'll discuss it here in a second. Poketurn the Bronzong, that's a good play. Promoting Crobat, that also makes sense. Checking the discard pile, that is my 3rd Poketurn used up now, I believe. So at most, I have 1 left. And trying to decide, what do I do with this last bench slot? And deciding to bench the Bronzong here, attach the Dark, and play the Judge. Top deck Judge was very clutch. Kyle had a huge hand full of supporters. Those Gengars weren't doing much, but anytime you can turn them off of something like a hand of that sort, that's great. Okay. Again, I love having this Bronzong as the ability to power up a Honchkrow in a single turn, but it was not the right move here. And the reason is because unless I knock out this Blaziken, I'm just giving Kyle another chance to Luring Flame it. And then that just wastes another Poketurn if I even have one left, which we see I just drew it. So I'm looking at this Gengar. I'm thinking, okay, this is a great chance. Let's go for that play we discussed earlier with the target attack. Again, that plan is still in motion over several turns. This is where part 2 of the plan comes into play. And I'm going to attack around the Blaziken, which probably is still fine if I hadn't benched the Bronzong. So big misplay there, burning another resource, giving Kyle another turn to just stall with Luring Flame. As we look at Kyle's own hand, not great. We see 2 rare candy, and I believe that was either a Gastly or a Gengar. I saw a Bebe search, and I saw a Judge. This is an interesting spot, by the way. We were trading prizes for a while, and now you'll see that we are both kind of stuck at 3 prize cards here. Neither of us really figuring out how to proceed from here. Going to go for that Premier Ball, very valuable card, and has the choice of level X's, deciding, you know what, let's just attack with this Blaziken while I've got it, going for the Blaziken FB Lv.X here. So, gives it a little more HP, sets up a possible Jet Shoot later on. I think this is a great play. All right. And Kyle deciding, do I Bebe or do I Judge? I think it would be kind of nice to establish another level X in this sort of off turn with that Bebe search, but by leveling up the Blaziken, you do kind of commit yourself to the Blaziken this turn. If you wanted to level up, you would have to also retreat the Blaziken. With no other energy in hand, I think it's reasonable to just go for the Judge now. I don't think I played any cards from my hand after I played Judge, so both of us are kind of just going back into a new hand here. And Kyle now, if Kyle can draw an energy, Jet Shoot will knock out the Honchkrow, and that would be really, really solid. So that's what he's looking for right off the bat. Boom, first Psychic Energy, got it. Even gets the Gengar Lv.X off the top, so this is a great hand for Kyle. Gets the energy gain too, doesn't even need to attach to the Blaziken. So Jet Shoot will knock out my Honchkrow G, but it will increase the damage dealt to Blaziken FB by 40. So Kyle now is going up in the prize race here, and now it's my turn to respond. And wow, DCE and energy gain in that hand. What a solid hand to Judge into. I even have the Aaron if I want, or I have the Cyrus. Oh, another DCE. Okay, Cyrus would be nice, but well, actually, what's the math here? I need to do 70 damage to the Blaziken, so unfortunately, I have to Dragon Rush it if I want to knock it out. I should be using this Aaron to go get a Garchomp C Lv.X, and it does appear that's what I'm going to do here. All right. Play the Aaron's collection, grabbing a Garchomp and a Drifblim as well. I still have the dream of pulling off a Shadow Ball on a Uxie. I can also Shadow Ball the Azelf as well, so theoretically, my last prize cards are already determined right now. I can knock out this Blaziken, and then I can knock out Uxie and Azelf and take my last 2 prizes. Now, that actually has to happen, but when you're playing, you want to come up with these plans, right? Especially in a deck like Sablelock, you really have to map out your prize cards. You cannot just go with the flow when it comes to how you're going to take KOs and take prizes, because every prize card matters with a deck like Sablelock. All right, so we did Dragon Rush the Blaziken FB Lv.X. Again, the Jet Shoot increases damage dealt to Blaziken by 40, so that's why we're able to take the KO. And Kyle now gets to promote the Gengar, finally draws the Garchomp C Lv.X. We have not seen, I believe, any double colorless energy from Kyle this game, so those Garchomps have yet to attack. Meanwhile, mine have been doing a lot of work here, a lot of heavy lifting, as my board has not looked very good for the last few turns. Really just kind of scraping by with what I've got. Again, I have a second DCE in my hand, so this will help me out. And Kyle going to level up the Gengar Lv.X here, and this is what I was talking about. Gengar Lv.X has 140 HP, which means that it now has 50 HP remaining, which means that Psychic Restore cannot KO this Gengar Lv.X. So this was the misplay that I made when it came to my prize mapping on the Gengar. basically those two attacks were worthless now. If I had been able to, let's say, target down the Garchomp C on the bench or a Uxie with that Honchkrow, that would have given me one more prize card, and that would have been extremely crucial. So I definitely have learned my lesson here, and the lesson is that Gengar is an annoying card. No, I'm kidding. The lesson is that you have to be very careful with your mapping, but I will say playing around Fainting Spell is one of the most challenging things you can do in this format, and even with someone who has been playing 2010 for as long as I have, I still sometimes mess it up. So that's one of the strengths of Gengar as a card, is that it asks a lot of your opponent, not only with resources and timing, but also just, do you as a player know how to deal with Gengar? So I'm sure this is one of the reasons why Kyle loves Gengar so much. He has numerous Gengar decks, and again, this is his favorite deck in 2010, and I think it's a good choice. Going to get this Ambipom here. So Snap Attack not currently on the table, as I did leave the Dark Energy on the Garchomp. And for Kyle, you have to choose now. Are you going to Poltergeist in a 5-card hand? Or are you going to, oh, we see the Poltergeist for 60. Okay, so went for the risk. I see the argument. It's like, well, if it works, then you got the prize, and if not, then, well, it's like you Shadow Room to the active, right? So, and here we go. It is now my time to figure out what I'm going to do here. You see me with the Drifblim, and there is a world where I can Shadow Ball if I had a Poketurn. If I had a Poketurn, I could bench Drifblim, Galactic Switch from the Garchomp onto the Drifblim, attach Psychic, attach Energy Gain, Shadow Ball, which would be great. But I would also need a Crobat, and that's a lot. So going to go for the initiative here, seeing what we can do. We got Tails and a Heads. Oh, and there's the Lv.X. Very happy to throw that away as the last card. Kyle with an empty hand. That definitely makes me feel better about how I'm going to proceed from here. Okay, so this hand is a little awkward. I'm trying to figure out, okay, can I knock out this Gengar? Remember that Gengar has colorless weakness, or sorry, colorless resistance. So an Earthquake from my Garchomp would not be able to knock out this Gengar. I currently cannot get a Lv.X, so I think I'm gonna have to go for this setup. Now, how many cards do I play before I set up? I can commit the energy and the gain. I can commit just the energy. Or I can just bench the Uxie right now. This is that trade-off between drawing more cards and also having less information. If you want to commit these resources without knowing what will happen, then something like this could come up. So I am going to fully set up this Garchomp. The argument is that I can Galactic Switch the Dark Energy later, and I'm going to set up for 5. Oh, and we drew the Honchkrow, and we drew the Garchomp C Lv.X. Okay. Now, if I recall, this might be my 4th DCE, and I think this is something I missed. So I'm going to go for the Energy Switch, which feels really good, but now I'm actually setting up my Garchomp to be Snap Attacked later on. So this is still great, though, because now I can KO probably the Ambipom, frankly, or I can KO the Gengar. All right, going for the Ambipom makes sense. If I KO the Gengar and Kyle flips Heads on Fainting Spell, that would give him the initiative to take the last prize card, whereas now I'm 1 prize card away. I can knock out this Gengar, so Kyle needs to take a prize this turn, and he misses on the Poltergeist. All right, so all I need is a single snipe, a single KO to win the game, and I don't think I have it. The Psychic Restore doesn't work because of the Lv.X, so that's off the table. Because I moved the energy off of the Garchomp onto the Honchkrow, I can't even go for a Dragon Rush because there's no energy on here. And the problem is, if there is a Poketurn left, I have that Cyrus I just drew off the prizes, which I'm pretty sure the 6th prize is a Cyrus, by the way, on my end. That would have enabled me to just Dragon Rush for the game. But because I Galactic Switched, I can't do that anymore. So now all I can do is power up this Honchkrow. I'm going to collect or search my deck and verify what's left in there. But this was a seemingly innocuous decision to Galactic switch onto the Honchkrow, try to set that up. But because I'm out of the DCEs, now this Garchomp can't attack. So this was an opportunity to win the game this turn that I missed. Going to have to play something else. Going to Collector, thin the deck of a bunch of junk, frankly. And we do see there was a Poketurn. So if I had kept the if I had kept the Dark Energy attached to the Garchomp, would have had it. But unfortunately, that is not where we ended up. So going to Collector for 3 cards here. And I think I'm just going to end up passing the turn. I've got the energy in hand for the Honchkrow. And I could retreat the Garchomp, but then he could just Shadow Room. So another play I could have made is I could have Cyrus for a Poketurn anyway and just picked up the Garchomp with the Poketurn to try to make it a bit harder for Kyle to take a prize. Kyle with a Poketurn and a Uxie Lv.X with no cards in hand that are useful. Doesn't matter. All Kyle needs to do is take a knockout, bring it down to 1 prize apiece, and see if Fainting Spell can save him is kind of the choice here. I think the advantage bar was definitely on my side here in these last couple turns, but we did not get there in the end. So Kyle takes a knockout, goes to 1 prize card left. I'm looking, is there any way I can snipe around this Gengar? I drew a Toxicroak G, which is the worst card in this deck, by the way. I just want to say I think Toxicroak is not a good card in Sablelock. I only play it because I play Psychic Energy anyway for the Drifblim, which is a card I really love. Anyway, here we go. I'm realizing in real time that the only thing I can do is to knock out the Gengar with Honchkrow and hope that Kyle flips tails. If Kyle flips tails, I take a prize card and I win the game. If Kyle flips heads, this game ends in a draw. So, Evan Cole versus Kyle Whimsicast. It all comes down to this. Riot takes the knockout. Kyle flips. It's heads. Fainting Spell knocks out Honchkrow, and both of us take our last prize card at the exact same time. How else could it possibly end? So this was in a tournament. We ended up deciding to just have the match be a tie instead of playing a tiebreaker just for the sake of time. Again, we had to wait for everyone else as well. We didn't want to waste their time, but this is how it ends. Sablelock versus Gengar C. The matchup was too close. I think I had a couple opportunities I missed. Kyle made great decisions all the way through, played super carefully, played to his outs, and was able to claw a tie from the jaws of defeat. So great game. This was so much fun. I'm glad we got this on footage. I hope you enjoyed it as well. 2010, how could it get better than this? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time for some more great retro.